If you're an event professional, you're about to discover how to get unstuck, stand out, and attract event clients like crazy, if that's something you're looking to do. And I want to share with you my fail-proof marketing process that I use to transform my itty-bitty side hustle into a multi-million-dollar events company. I want to tell you real quick some of the things I'm going to be covering in the presentation, just so you know if this is for you and if you want to spend your time listening to this right now. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is I'm going to teach you how to identify what I call the event professional's death trap, and more importantly, how to defeat it. Now, this is the #1 plague that keeps most event professionals stuck in their businesses. I have been in the industry for over a decade now. I've worked in thousands of events. I've worked with event professionals in every capacity you can imagine. And so many people fall into this trap and don't realize this is where they are in, or that they're in this trap. I myself have been stuck in this trap. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what that trap is here in a second, and my journey out of it, and how you can learn from that. I'm also going to teach you how to identify your competitive advantage that will make you stand out in a crowded sea of competitors. There's a lot of people in the event space now, probably a lot of people doing the things that you're doing as well. And I'm going to teach you how to differentiate yourself in the minds of your customers. Then I'm going to teach you how to attract clients like crazy using the exact fail-proof marketing strategy that turned my side gig into a multi-million-dollar events company. And I promise you, this will work for any event professional and any other business for that matter. And no, you don't have to pay anybody any money to get started on this, including myself. I have nothing to sell you. This is just informational purpose for your sake. A sneak peek on my journey. So this right here is the graph of Balloon Artisan, my company, and where we've been financially for the past 11 years. The first 4 or 5 years were really, really rough. You can see I was making almost no money. I was really good at the event decorating space. I was really good at my craft, but I was really, really bad at business. It's very painful. Now, right here, I finally learned some stuff, and I learned how to actually reliably attract clients, and my revenue grew. But then I found out about this death trap I was telling you about, right? The event professional's death trap. I'm going to tell you once again more about that and what it was. But I fell into it and I got stuck and my growth stagnated. Then COVID happened here. COVID sucks. So hopefully never have to relive that. And then after COVID, I fell right back into that trap again for a year until I finally figured out that I was in a trap. Then I finally figured out how to break free. And now we're a multi-million-dollar company and we're growing very quickly. We're able to make a massive impact in the event industry. We're creating lots of jobs. And more importantly, we're helping our clients to have an incredible experience working with us and making their events more unforgettable. My name's Keenan Price. I'm the CEO of Balloon Artisan, and I have nothing to sell you. I have no courses, no coaching, no books, no seminars, nothing like that to sell. I'm just giving this information away freely. If you'd ever like to connect with me, I love building my network, especially in the professional space. I know it can, or in the professional event space, sorry. I know it can get pretty lonely, and it can be a very difficult place to be in, and it's always helpful to have more friends. So if you want to connect with me, scan the QR code, go to that URL, look me up on LinkedIn, and shoot me a message. Like I said, always looking to make more friends in the space. Just to give some street cred, I've worked on a lot of really cool projects. My whole team has. In aggregate, we've been involved in thousands of events over the years. We built some of the largest balloon installations in the world. This rainbow installation right there on the left is my favorite one that we've ever built, I think. I really love that project. That's cool. We've done stuff all over the country. We've worked with both private clients, a lot of celebrities, a lot of high-end private clients. We've worked with hundreds and hundreds of brands of all sizes. So one of my favorite clients that we've ever worked with was Instagram, who hired us to help them launch Instagram TV, which was the precursor to Reels. That happened at VidCon in Anaheim, California, quite a few years ago. I can't remember how many years ago. But they contacted us like, hey, we're launching this new feature on Instagram and we need to make a big splash. We need to make a big impression. We need some cool photo ops to make that happen. Can you guys work with us? And we're like, yeah, absolutely. And we were able to pull off some really cool stuff for them. So that was a really cool project. Work with lots of other brands in similar high profile events. Some of the biggest events in the world we've been part of. Really cool. And we've also been part of thousands of smaller events as well. We have a pretty big team here. We're really good at what we do, both logistically and artistically. And we love helping out our clients, like I said, of all sizes. So birthdays, graduations, baby showers, all that stuff. Currently, Balloon Artisan is operating in 24 states. In the states that we're not in, we're just, hop, skip, and a jump away, whether it's a plane, a train, or a car, we can get there. And no, we're not a franchise. So everything we're doing is corporate. Everyone that's, is part of the Balloon Artisan team, like they are part of our team and we train them and like everyone's accountable to each other. It's really cool. And I'm really proud of what we've created over the years. I've been through the ringer with entrepreneurship. I started out, it was just me. I started out making balloon animals in the park, actually, is where I got my start. And then eventually people started asking me to do balloon arches and things and go to their corporate parties. And I just kept growing and growing and growing. And then, as I learned, the team got bigger. As we overcame those milestones and those barricades, those barriers, we were able to just keep growing. And it's been really fun. And now, Balloon Artisan, we are responsible for the livelihoods of over 70 team members and their families. We have a lot of amazing artists. I think the most talented artists in the world work for Balloon Artisan, and our events and logistics team is just absolutely phenomenal. It's really cool. And the most important thing is that we do a really good job taking care of our clients and helping them to celebrate their most important life milestones. We know that, one cool thing about the event space is most of these events that are being celebrated are once in a lifetime occasions. And once they're here and gone, that's it. You never get a second chance. So whether it's a big corporate event or a grand opening or Timmy's birthday or Sarah's wedding or whatever it is, that's a very special thing to be part of. And that's one of the things I love about being in this industry. So it's really cool. Now, with that context in mind, I want to introduce you to what I call the event professional's death trap. This is the obstacle that keeps most event professionals stuck and unable to grow. If you're watching this right now, it's probably because you want help finding more clients and more quality clients. And if that's the case for you, you're probably stuck in this death trap. So pay attention, take notes. This is going to be good. Since 2018, when I started pursuing balloon artists in full time, I've sold around $2,500,000 in balloons. And that includes the 2 years of the pandemic where I did almost nothing. And this year alone, we should do about $2 million in sales. So that's pretty exciting. Now, I'm not saying this to brag. I'm not saying this to be like, oh, look at me, look how incredible I am. I'm not trying to say, hey, we're the case study that everyone should emulate or follow. That's not it at all. But there are a lot of event professionals that ask me about my journey and how we got to where we are, how we got the team that we got, and how we've been able to overcome some of these obstacles. And so I'm just freely sharing my story, take it for what it is. I'm just being radically transparent. There's a lot of things that we've done really bad. There's a lot of things we've done good and everything in between. And I think there's a lot to be learned from all of it. But what I can tell you is during that time, it was really exciting, but it was hell. It was such an arduous and such a difficult journey. And here's why. So this chart right here, or this graph, these are the first 2 years of financials for Balloon Artisan. So like I said, if you remember that chart, it was like nothing my first 5 years, then I had a spike up. This is right where that spike up happened, right? I figured some stuff out. I figured out how to attract clients. And so what happened is January of 2018, I had no money, I had no projects, I had very few clients, right? But what I did have is I had lots of time, and that was very good. And so what I did with that lots of time is I decided to go all in on my business, and I ended up going out and I started networking. I started calling up past clients. I started, posting on Facebook. I started talking to people, going to events and asking, hey, where are your balloons? Why don't you have balloons? Let's do something together next time, right? And guess what? It worked. And pretty soon, all that marketing and all that energy, it paid off. And then I had lots of projects. But because I had lots of projects and I was so busy in the execution of the company and the projects, I now had no time, which meant there's no more marketing. So pretty soon, I was back to having no projects and lots of time. And so then I had to repeat the cycle. And then I had lots of projects in no time. Then I was running around like a crazy person trying to get all the projects done and all the deliverables figured out and all that and designing everything. And then I had no more time. And then because I was not marketing, then all of a sudden I ran out of projects and I had lots of time again. And it was just this ebb and flow, just boom, 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 peaks and valleys, right? And I felt like a crazy person. It was very, very difficult. And this cycle right here is what so many event professionals find themselves in. And this is what I call the event professional's death trap. This vicious cycle of you have nothing going on. So you go out and you work really hard to find clients, but because it works and you find clients, you have no way to service those clients and keep the marketing engine going. And so you let the marketing engine die. And then what happens is you finish your projects and then you have nothing in the pipeline because no one was out there marketing. And now you are out of projects and you have to repeat the cycle, right? And most event companies never grow because they get stuck in the cycle and they never figure out how to get out of it. I was no exception. I spent several years in this cycle, but now I've learned how to get out of it. And I'm here to share that with you. But I can tell you that during that time, those peaks and valleys were very difficult for me. The feast and famine was hell. I hated it. Also, I was really, really freaking lonely. Really lonely. And the reason was I had to do everything myself. I had some freelancers, I had some helpers, had some contractor workers working, part-time with me. But for the most part, I was the only one doing everything. I felt pulled in 10,000 directions at all times. I couldn't trust anyone to take care of my clients like I could, to come up with the designs that I could come up with. I couldn't trust anyone to represent my brand as well as I could. And because of that, once again, I was stuck constantly doing it, everything. I had no one to share in the victories with, and I had no one to lighten the load. And it was hell. And I know so many of my event professional friends have found themselves in the same situation. That's why I call it the death trap. It's rough. So during that time, I was doing all this stuff. I was dealing with all the marketing. I was dealing with all the time wasters. I was doing the sales, the social media, the web design, client service, late night texts and calls, and information exchanging and all that stuff. And I was chasing my clients to pay invoices. I was doing finances and planning and hiring and insurance and invoicing and compliance, payroll and designing and ordering and inventory and building and tracking. It was so stressful. It was too much. And because I was spending all of my time doing that stuff, I had no time for the things that mattered most. I didn't have enough time for my family. I put friends question mark. I'll be honest, I didn't have any friends. Everyone forgot who I was because I was so busy working all the freaking time that I didn't prioritize anybody else and lost my friends. I was always behind on house stuff. Wasn't that I didn't have money or whatever, but at one point my yard was 3 feet long. It was ridiculous. There's piles of laundry. It was clean at least, but piles of laundry all over the house. Like, it was a nightmare. Whenever I'd get sick, I just had to plow through it because I had so many projects. I just had to keep work. And then it'd take me longer to get better. And I was always tired. My health sucked. Matter of fact, when I was making this slide, my 5-year-old boy, he walked in, he saw this, he's like, "Dad, that doesn't look good. No one should have that many arms." I'm like, "You're right, son. It was not good. It was rough." And actually, he was about a year old when all this stuff was going on. It was very difficult. So I got to the point I was making a lot of money, but I was so freaking busy, stressed, exhausted, absent, and overwhelmed that I couldn't enjoy any of my success. And then what followed is what happens to so many event professionals: burnout. Right? How often is it that people, as event professionals, we're like, okay, it's a busy season, hunker down. We just run. And at the end of it, we're so burned out. We're so tired. We don't want to do it anymore. And then once again, that cycle, right? That death trap. This is the death trap. And you have to figure out how to get out of it if you want to grow a predictable, reliable, and sustainable business in the event space. You want to get off of that death trap. Now, let me ask you, have you been there before? Have you been there? Maybe you're even there now. Maybe you're stuck in the middle of this and you're like, "Yep, I can relate to that." Well, if that is you, let's get you out of there. Because the goal is not to have these peaks and valleys and this feast and famine, right? The goal of a good business is to create consistent, predictable, and reliable growth. That's the goal. Luckily, I've been able to do that with Balloon Artisan now. It took me a long time to get there. And having lived in both spaces and everywhere in between, I can tell you it's a lot more fun to run an events company if you can get consistent, predictable, and reliable growth. That means you don't have to feel like a crazy person anymore. You don't have to have all the highs and lows and the emotional rushes of, "Oh my gosh, I'm making so much money. It's working. Oh, this is wonderful. And oh, I hate my life because I never sleep and all I'm doing is working. Oh, I have no friends anymore. And oh, it's so hard. And oh, it's so stressful. Oh, but how much fun, right?" You don't have to go through those mood swings. You don't have to deal with that feast and famine, the peaks and valleys. We don't want to do that. That's not the goal, is to experience those things. We want to get out of those things, right? So this is how we do it. So when you're running an events business, there's all this stuff that you have to do, right? There's the stuff in orange, which I'd call kind of the businessy stuff, and there's the stuff in teal, which is the creative stuff. Now, most people get in the event space because they love the creative stuff. That's what got me in there too. I loved doing balloon decor. I was good at it. People liked my work. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I loved the energy of the event space. But the cruel irony about it is that the stuff in orange is what will make your business grow and what will make you successful. The stuff in teal only will take you so far, right? So if you aren't making as much money as you want to be in your business and your business is not as healthy as you want it to be, you're missing the factors in the orange. That's what you're lacking right now. Focusing more on this stuff will not solve the problem. I tried that for years. It does not work. Getting better at your craft, making better designs, that stuff doesn't work. You have to work on the factors in orange. Now, out of all those factors, the things I want to talk about for the rest of this presentation are the marketing and sales aspect, because I think that's what most people here want to learn: how to get unstuck, how to stand out in a sea of competition, and how to attract quality event clients. This is how to do it. So if you want more customers, you cannot let these things stop no matter how busy you get. That's the whole trick, right? Now, you can either do this yourself, you can be the one doing the marketing, or you can get help. You can hire someone, you can work with an agency or whatever, but you cannot let those things stop if you want to get out of that death trap, because you have to make sure that your sales are predictable and consistent enough that you can bring on support, that you can bring on team members, that you can train people. One of the hardest things that I experienced for many years is it's really hard to get loyal people if you're only letting them work 10 hours a week. Really, really difficult. Because they're not making enough money to put you as their priority, right? If they're not your full-time gig, then they're going to need to find a full-time gig. And whether that's, staying home with family, or whether that's, getting a different job, then you're just kind of their side hustle. It's very difficult. So you have to be able to bring in enough sales to get good people to help you. And to do that, you can't let the marketing and sales stop. Does that make sense? Okay, let's move into part two, which is finding your competitive advantage. Or in other words, what makes you different? Now, you have to be different before you can stand out. If you're the same as everybody else, there's nothing compelling that's going to cause customers to want to work with you instead of your competition, right? So if you want to attract more customers, the best way to start is right here, finding what makes you unique, what makes you different, where you can stand out. There's an expression, the riches are in the niches, that applies here. And remember, you cannot be all things to all people if you want to get really, really good. Now, quick warning, it's kind of difficult to find your competitive advantage. It takes a lot of back and forth and really testing things and figuring it out and seeing what marketing messages resonate, which sales message resonates and causes your client to actually go with you. It's kind of a sloppy, clunky, awkward dance. But if you stick with it, you can figure it out. Now, here's some principles that you need to understand, or some things you need to do to really figure out what makes you unique and to figure out a spot where you can really thrive. The first one is you have to pick your customer. Now, you cannot be all things to all people, remember? You can't just be an event planner that helps people plan events. You have to focus in on a specific customer segment if you want to be great. If you want to be jack of all trades and master of none, work with anybody. If you want to be great, find one customer segment and go all in on those. Now, it's important to realize that all customers have pros and cons. And so you need to understand those moving forward. So some customer segments out there, you can have private clients, so the birthdays and showers and graduations. These are great clients, lots of very exciting life milestones, very emotional events. Sometimes the budgets are a little bit lower. Sometimes, like with birthdays, and in Balloon Artisan's case, we'll have someone work with us for their 40th birthday and we'll knock it out of the park. We'll absolutely, just deliver a phenomenal experience, and they'll love us and sing praises to our names and leave us reviews on Google and all that good stuff. But then we won't hear from them for another 5 years till the 45th birthday, right? That's kind of hard to grow a business like that. So that's a tricky thing. You have weddings. Weddings are cool, really nice, beautiful designs. People save for years. They go all out on weddings, but the downside is most people only get married once, or only have the one big wedding, right? And so if you have a wedding client, you probably won't ever work with them again. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. I don't know. You decide. You have conventions. These are really big events. They're logistically complicated. A lot of times they happen every year, great source of revenue, but it's just a different cup of tea, right? Different pros, different cons. You just have to decide where you want to be. Same with grand openings. You make a lot of money helping people execute a successful grand opening. The downside, once it happens, it's done. That's it. You can do corporate events. These are really good. There's a lot of money in the corporate space, right? But these events tend to be a little less emotional. Sometimes they tend to be a little less exciting, a little more on the boring side. Not always, but they can be that way. A lot of times budgets are the primary focus in what they end up having, what they don't end up having. Whereas with like a private event, they're like, I know we're over budget, but we really want this thing. Corporate's like, I know we're over budget, and so we are not going to have this thing anymore. Just kind of a thing. You have seasonal events. A lot of pros and cons with that as well. So my advice is to pick one that you'll love and go all in only on that one. Don't try to be all things to all people. Find one group of people that you serve really well. You know their pains. You know what keeps them up at night. You know what will cause them to work with you. You know how you can provide value. Now think of this choice kind of like getting married. When you marry someone, you get all their pros and all the positives and the things that make them awesome, and you get all the cons and the negatives and things that make them not quite so awesome, right? So when you pick a customer segment, realize this. Next thing you need to do is you need to carve out your niche. You need to figure out what problems can you solve for your ideal customer that aren't being solved very well by other people. The expression, the riches are in the niches, that comes into play here. So my advice, pick one problem that people suffer from and become world-class at solving that one problem, and then just partner with people that can do all the other stuff for you so you don't have to do it. And another thing, make sure to pick a problem that people will actually pay to solve. It'd be a real shame if you go through all the energy and effort to build this business, and it turns out that like you're solving a pain that's like a mosquito bite instead of like a shark bite. You want to solve shark bite pain, right? Something that people are like, oh my gosh, I have to have this. You don't want something that's like, yeah, like an exotic rose quartz punch bowl. Like it's kind of cool, but we don't really need it, right? You don't want to do stuff like that with your time. You want to make sure that it's a really important service that you're offering. Also, you got to understand who your competition is. Who are you fighting against, right? I personally like to find places where I can flourish. I like being the big fish in the small pond. I don't want to be the guppy in the ocean. Like, that's not fun for me. I want to be a big fish, small pond. I like that. I do really well there. You need to make sure that when you're considering your competition, that you have passion and competency to compete with them, right? You got to be passionate in the event space because things get hard. And when things get hard, you're going to need the energy and the ambition to keep moving forward. You also need to be confident, otherwise, people won't work with you. Sometimes I'll have people say, but Keenan, I don't have any competition. And that's false. You always, always, always have competition, always. Even if the competition is just deciding not to go with you and not to do anything just so they can save the budget, there's always competition. But in Balloon Artisan, we have a lot of competitors. We have balloon companies we compete against. We have florists. We have lighting people. Sometimes we even compete with like DJs who are offering to do decor services and things like that. There's a lot of things that we have to compete against. And so we have to really know our niche. We have to know who our customer is so we can really sell the value that we bring to the table and get those deals. Now, regarding competition, you also want to know who's targeting your same niche. Is anyone solving the exact same problem that you're solving? What's going to make you different from them? Who's targeting your same customer? This could be kind of cool because you can actually create partnerships. If you offer similar customers, but you offer different niches, different services, you can actually create partnerships. How's your customer currently dealing with the problem you solve, right? Competition can look like a lot of things. Maybe competition can be, a trip to the craft store or, a trip to Costco or whatever. That could be your competition. Once again, I like to personally fight where I'm strongest and exploit my competition's weakness. I'll tell you more about that here in a minute. But that's just my thing. Some people really love the challenge of climbing up from the ashes and being the underdog and all that. I've done that in the past. I don't want to do it anymore. It's very hard. One tool that I use to help assess my competitors is what I call the value triangle. Not all competition is equal. Not everyone's going to be competing with you, even if they're in the similar space, right? So the value triangle has 3 points. You have the fastest being 1, you have the best or like quality being 2, then you have the cheapest being 3. Now, the most you can have is 2. It's pretty much impossible to have all 3. If you think you have all 3, you're probably being delusional. A lot of companies, you only need 1, but a lot of companies only have 1. Some of them have none, right? If you have none, you got to figure out what you're going to do and figure out how to get into one of the points at least of these triangles. So to help you understand kind of what I mean. So say, for example, our customers are people that are hungry, right? Well, you got McDonald's, which can sell you a hamburger, beef, I think. Is that meat? I don't know if that's meat or not. You have somewhere like Texas Roadhouse, obviously still selling food, obviously still selling to hungry customers, but you can tell the customer base is very, very different in this case. Now, that doesn't mean the same person that eats McDonald's won't eat at Roadhouse, vice versa, but it's rare that someone's like, hey, I'm hungry. Should we go to Texas Roadhouse or McDonald's, right? Probably happens, not most of the time. Usually it's like, should we go to Olive Garden or Texas Roadhouse or Sizzler or whatever? That's usually the situation, right? So you can see Texas Roadhouse, a nice sit-down meal. It's less convenient. It's not as fast. It's going to be more expensive. You're going to get more food. The food's going to taste better. There's kind of that. Now you can bring in like a 3 Michelin star restaurant, right? Super fancy, way more expensive, right? Maybe that steak there is $150, whereas that Texas Roadhouse meal might be 40, and the McDouble or whatever that is might be 5, right? Now all 3 of those people are helping hungry people to not be hungry, or all 3 of those businesses are helping hungry people not to be hungry. But each of them occupies a different spot on the value triangle. So McDonald's, the cheapest and the fastest. It's not the best. No one's ever been like, McDonald's has the best burgers. If so, just run from that person. But they're the fastest and the cheapest, right? Texas Roadhouse is probably like the fastest and the best. So they're not like the best food ever, but when it comes to like who's that fast, it's also good. Texas Roadhouse is pretty good, right? Now they're cheaper than a lot of restaurants too, but that's not their competitive advantage. They're not trying to be the cheapest, right? Whereas somewhere like Golden Corral, which is a buffet all you can eat for a cheap price, like they're trying to be the cheapest, right? Cheap and fast. They're not trying to be the best. This Michelin star restaurant, they're not fast. You're probably going to be in there for 2 or 3 hours at least. They're not cheap, but they are the best. And you can make a successful business out of all of these, right? McDonald's is worth more than all those companies, but it's just a different customer segment. So it's important to understand this, that depending on how you position yourself will depend on the customers you attract, how much you can charge, and what services you can offer. Now, it's important to remember that you want to find your dream customers. You want to make lots of money and lots of sales, but your dream customers also want to find their dream vendor. And so it's important that you really nail down your competitive advantage so you can position yourself as their dream vendor, right? And you're not going to be all things to all people. A lot of people aren't going to like your company, and that's okay. That's a good thing. That means you have a good competitive advantage. That means you know your marketing, you know your demographic, and that's great. So for example, with Balloon Artisan, I like to find places where I can flourish. I like to exploit my competition's weakness. I like places where I have passion and competency, right? So at Balloon Artisan, we have a big team. There are about 70 people on our team. Really, really big. When you message us, we will get back to you within minutes. If you call the phone, we will answer. If you send us a, carrier pigeon or a smoke signal, we'll answer. Okay, just keying on those ones. But we have amazing response times. We are very professional. We do this full time. We are, around the clock pretty much. We are here to take care of you. Now, compare that to most balloon artists. So most balloon companies are one-person operation. They're doing it part-time. They're looking to make between $1,000 to $3,000 extra a month to pay for, their mortgage or the kids' stuff or whatever it is. And that's great. That's awesome that that's what they do. But the result of that is, one, they're cheaper than we are. They're always going to beat us on price. Like, we almost never win on price at Balloon Artisan. But what happens if their kid gets sick the day before the event and they have to pull out of your event? Or what happens if they're running kids around all day to different programs, or they're doing, XYZ, or they have a full-time day job or whatever? What happens then? Well, they're going to take ages to get back to you. What will frequently happen with us at Balloon Artisan is someone will reach out, and usually customers will reach out to 4 or 5 different, companies at the same time. We'll be back to them extremely quick, within 5 to 10 minutes, right? We'll get back to them. And then our competitors will take 2 to 3 days. So it's pretty common that by the time our competitors even respond, we've planned out the entire event for our client. And we've done everything. We've figured it all out for them. And they don't have to worry about whether we're going to deliver. They know we'll deliver. If we get a sick kid, we have another artist that steps in. Like, that's just how it is. We have a big, robust team. We have lots of resources, lots of bandwidth to pour into the customer experience. We have really good support systems. We have really good software, really good website, really good brochures. Like, everything we do is quality. But we are very expensive relative to somebody that's doing this out of their garage. And that's the thing, right? Do you value quality? Do you want the unbeatable customer service, the amazing experience, or do you want the cheap price? If you want the cheap price, we're not your team, right? And we tell people that very upfront. Like, hey, if you want to go price shop us, there's other people who do it cheaper. And they'll probably get back to you in 4 or 5 days, where we could have the whole project done in the next hour if you want. So that's how we do it. And so on our website, we have this messaging right here. Are you willing to put your once-in-a-lifetime event at risk by being somebody's side gig? And there's a little blurb talking about that. I made a little video to go along with it about, me being sick isn't going to ruin your party. I'm not going to no-show on you. Like, our team will be there for you. Here's the TLDR. So the summary of everything we've talked about. You've really found your competitive advantage and you've really mastered this when you can clearly explain what you do to a complete stranger in 30 seconds and they understand, 1, who would want to work with you? And they understand, 2, exactly what problem do you solve for those who's? And then 3, what makes you different from everybody else? Now, this will change a lot throughout the course of your business, and you'll keep finding better answers. So this is what I mean by that. When I started Balloon Artisan 11 years ago, I used to tell people I'm a balloon artist. I'm like, cool, like hot air balloons? I'm like, no. Like, oh, you print balloons for people to inflate for like party supply stores? I'm like, no. And they're like, oh, you make balloon dogs, which at the time was true. But once I got out of that, it's like, no, we do decor, right? Kind of confusing, not very good messaging, not clear who we work with. Then I moved into, I create balloon decorations for parties. Okay, the hot air balloon people disappeared. You wouldn't believe how many inquiries we used to get for hot air balloon stuff. It's so annoying. All that disappeared. Most of the balloon animal stuff disappeared, which was nice, but it still wasn't very clear who we worked with. Now, this is where we're currently at. When people ask, what do you do? We say, hey, I create balloon arches for corporate events, birthdays, baby showers, and graduations. And we really work with people that want to make their once-in-a-lifetime celebrations unforgettable. That's really who we do a good job taking care of. And, it's funny because on one hand, it's like, well, everyone wants their celebrations to be unforgettable, but that's not true, right? I've been invited to lots of parties where there's like one veggie tray and like a $20 cake from Walmart, and that's all they have. Like, those people are not trying to make an unforgettable birthday party, right? Those people will not work with us. We will not jive well with them. We just can't help them out. Now, let's talk about the economic difference between these statements. So when I used to say I'm a balloon artist, this was when my company was doing less than $25,000 per year. That's a $25,000 per year answer. Not very good. That's poverty. When I use this one, that's a $200,000 per year answer. Out of that, I was netting over 6 figures, so I was pocketing a fair amount of that. Pretty good answer. I was making some good money. Now, this right here is the $1 million per year answer. Okay, that's where we're currently at. Will it get better over time? Yes. Will we become more clear on our competitive advantage over time? Yes, we will. This will be better in the future, and then we'll have the 5 million a year, 10 million a year, whatever it ends up being, right? Now that we've built a good foundation with parts 1 and 2, we understand the death trap, we understand our competitive advantage. Now it's time to move on to part 3, which is how to attract clients like crazy. And I'm about to share with you the most powerful fail-proof process that exists in marketing and sales. There's nothing that can beat this. Now, one thing I want to clarify, the goal, if you want to really do a good job at marketing and sales, it is not to get more projects. It's not to get more sales, not to get more customers. Your goal is to find a repeatable and a predictable process that you can follow to reliably get more customers and sales. And then ideally, you can teach someone else how to do that process so you don't have to do it. That is what will take you out of the death trap completely. That's what will allow you to scale. At Balloon Artisan, I no longer have to do this. We've grown to the point, we master the process, we master the systems. I take somebody, I hire them, I train them, and they do it. And I don't have to do it. And the customers just come in. And that's a really, really cool place to be. Then I can work on building our customer success systems and helping train the team and helping with sales and helping with, our designs and our brochures and like troubleshooting issues and putting out fires. Like that's now what I do. I'm more of an executive on the team. I don't do a lot of the art anymore. I've kind of stepped out of that because I fell out of love with it after 11 years and I needed to get into something different, right? So that's the goal. Remember, you cannot do this until you've really figured out your competitive advantage. It's going to be way too difficult. And until you do this, you also will constantly be stuck in the death trap. So you need to get out of it. Now, I want to share with you the most important thing I've learned in my entire entrepreneurial career. This is the process that will change your life. This is the process that changed my life. And that is how to think like a scientist, and specifically how to use a process called the scientific method. This right here changed my entire life and has made me a lot of money. Okay, so here's the way that I like to explain business. I like to compare it to a maze. So corn maze, hedge maze, whatever, right? Most entrepreneurs know where they start, where the starting point to the maze is, right? That's simply where you are on day one. You have this much money, these contacts, these skills, whatever. That's starting point. Then you know where you want to get to. So I want a yacht, I want a plane, I want, $1 million, I want a new house, whatever it is. They know where they want to get. But it's that path in between that's full of a bunch of unknowns and twists and unexpected surprises and the creepy chainsaw guy that jumps out and scares you, and all that stuff, right? That is where all the uncertainty lies. And so the best way to approach entrepreneurship, and this sounds very intuitive, but most people do not do this, is to take a very humble approach and to say, okay, I'm here now. I know where I want to get, and I don't know the path to get there. But what I do know is that in front of me, I have a series of decisions, and I don't necessarily know the right path to take. And so what you do is you make an observation. This is a scientific method. You make an observation, you create a hypothesis or an educated guess based on that observation. And then what you do is you design an experiment to see if your guess is right. You perform the experiment, and then if based on the data or what happens, then you can decide, was I right? Was I wrong? If you're right, great, keep going down that path. More often than not, you will be wrong. And that's the tricky thing about business. It takes a lot of humility. Okay. A lot of people think they know the way forward and they don't. And this is just the bottom line thing. Like whenever I talk to an entrepreneur that's like, oh, I keep trying to do this thing in my business. Like, oh, how long have you been trying to do that? They're like, oh, I've been trying to grow it for 2 years now. It's like, cool. Like, do you know the path to get there? Like, yeah, I do. It's like, cool. Well, why are you still stuck? Like, if you knew the path, you shouldn't still be in the same spot. Like maybe for like a month, like maybe, some things do take time. Not everything's instantaneous, but if you knew the path to get there, then you wouldn't be stuck. You wouldn't be where you are now, right? So I can't emphasize this enough. The best way to sell, the best way to market, and the best path forward as an entrepreneur is to follow the scientific method and to think like a scientist, right? So once again, you make an observation about something related to your business. Then you create a hypothesis or your best guess about what will happen or why things are the way they are, or what will work or what won't work. And then you design a way to test your guess to see if you're right. And it's not bad to be wrong. You just want to make note of it, right? After that, you conduct the test and you measure your results. And then you decide if you validated your hypothesis, if your guess was correct, or if you're wrong. And if you're wrong, sometimes you need to go back to the drawing board. And the most important part of this process is to make sure you document everything that you're learning because you'll inevitably forget stuff. And also, learning what not to do can be just as valuable as learning what to do. So this is what my journey looked like. Here's my graph for the last 11 years. It's going to keep going up. Things are going really well. Right here, the first 4 or 5 years, I was relying on word of mouth. I was relying on people I met on the street, acquaintances, my personal Facebook, stuff like that. I was growing a little bit, not very fast. I was a good balloon artist, but I wasn't good at business. Now, what happened here is I ended up creating a portfolio brochure because I realized I was like, hey, not a lot of people have a vision of what's possible with balloons. And so what's happening is I go in and say, hey, I create balloons for events, right? Or balloon arts for events. And they had this like spiral cart or the spiral arch that you see like a used car dealership. That's what they had in mind. They're like, I don't want that in my event. It's stupid. And so I found out that I was having a hard time selling because whenever I said balloon artist, that's what people thought they were getting. And nobody saw the vision like I did. And so I went out and I made a portfolio. A lot of the projects in the portfolio I did for free. I just found a cool venue. I'm like, hey, can I make this thing? This is kind of like what I'm hoping to do. And they're like, yeah, you can do it. And I made it, and that was it. So I took that, printed it out, and I'd go deliver it to businesses. And it turned out that 1 out of 4 businesses that I would give that to would book with me. And that was really cool. And at that point, I got stuck in the death trap. So I had nothing going on. I went out, I give out those brochures. I connected with a lot of people. I went to networking events with my brochures and I showed everyone, look how cool this is. Do you love the vision? Let's do it for your corporate event, right? And they're like, oh yeah, that's great. And then I was so busy executing the vision now and building the projects that I couldn't keep giving out the brochures, and then things would die. It was bad. And then because I was stuck in that cycle, I could never hire people full time. I only had a bunch of freelancers basically helping me out as needed. And it was really, really rough, right? And COVID sucks. And then right here, we ended up stepping away from the physical brochures altogether. We went to digital marketing exclusively to drive leads, and we got really clear on our competitive advantage. Instead of marketing to everybody, we started marketing to a specific customer segment, okay, a specific type of customer, and that's who we got really, really good at helping. Now, one interesting thing about Blue Arson's story, if you check us out on social media, our social media is not great. It's a little embarrassing, honestly. The fact that we're in 24 states and our social media is so inconsequential to our operations is a little sad. But the reason that it's sad is, first off, you have to be different to stand out. And 99% of our competitors get all their clients from social media. And so if I focus on social media, I'm competing against all of them. So I would rather go where they are not, because that's where I can stand out. If I'm doing the same thing they're doing, I'm going to get the same results they have. Most balloon companies are one-person part-time operations. I should not be emulating them as a multi-million-dollar company. There's nothing wrong with how they're doing it. It's totally fine. It's just a lifestyle choice. It's how it is. But it is going to be very hard for Balloon Artisan to do what they do at scale and to have any sort of substantial growth. And just barely, after 2 years of growing really quickly, we're just starting to focus on social media, right? That's why. But once again, throughout this whole process, I adopted this scientific thinking, right? And by throughout the whole process, I mean when things started going good. The first part of my journey, I did not adopt this process. And that's why I sucked at everything. But when I started getting things figured out, that's what I did. So this right here was my first portfolio brochure. So my observation, oh, a lot of people that I talk to think balloons are stupid. Balloons aren't stupid. They just haven't seen the cool balloons. Therefore, my hypothesis was if I create or if I show them pictures of what's possible, they'll expand their horizons. They'll think, wow, this is really cool. And they'll want balloons. So that's what I did. This is my brochure right here. So these are the pages that I had of it. I think it's like 7 or 8 pages long or whatever. It's printed, really nice paper, all that stuff. So I would give that to people. It would blow their mind on what was possible, and it worked. There's other things that I tried that did not work. So I started giving out Christmas cards every year. We made these cute little boxes that fit our brochures perfectly. And I'm like, oh, let's just mail the brochures out and that'll save us a bunch of time. We can be more efficient and spread the word all over the country, right? That didn't work. That was a terrible idea, terrible investment, total waste of time, took months of our time, horrible idea, right? That didn't work. We started sponsoring events. We even paid for booths at trade shows and stuff. That did not work as well. That was a total waste of time, total waste of money. It sucked. The other thing we started doing is we started identifying really big events, and we donated our services and said the caveat is that we get to put our signage and our logos all over the balloons, right? At the time, we're a Utah Balloon Guru. It's where we started, Salt Lake City, Utah. Now we're Balloon Artisan. But that's what we do. And that sucked. We'd have 15,000 people see our balloon installation, and we figured, I don't know, maybe 10 events would come from that. The answer, zero. Zero events. And all the times we tried this, we had hundreds of thousands of people see our art. Nothing ever came from it. It was a horrible experiment. And we started doing things like we did these little thank you scrapbooks where we'd take pictures from their event and we'd cut the pictures up and we'd post them in there like behind the scenes commentary and write a nice thank you letter. That didn't work. And plus it took a lot of time and it cost money to ship them. It was a pain in the ass. And so we ended up making these postcards, writing notes. That also didn't work. We didn't see any increase in customer retention. We didn't see any increase in referrals. So we stopped doing it, right? So once again, the most important thing you can do is think like a scientist. Realize that you are stuck in a maze right now. You know where you started, you know where you've been, and you know where you want to get, but you do not know the path forward. You cannot know the path forward. If you knew the path forward, you'd be there already. And so you got to stay really humble, and you need to say, okay, I think if I make a printed design brochure, like Keenan did, and I give it to a bunch of potential clients that I will get bookings. You might and you might not. I personally think it's a really good thing to do. I am very, very happy with that strategy. It worked really well. I've even thought about doing that now, where we just hire people in each city that Balloon Artisan operates in, and we just hire those people full time to distribute brochures. We've thought about doing that. Maybe we will, maybe we don't. But there's my journey. That's how I did it. So from point A to point B, I've had at least 16 different brochure versions. I've had dozens of failed marketing mediums and failed experiments. I've had hundreds of website variations, honestly, probably thousands, but hundreds. We've had thousands of ad variations, and we test the entire time. And that's how you win at sales and marketing. That's how you attract clients like crazy. You have to test, realize you probably won't know the right path forward the first time, but as long as you learn and you document your mistakes, you'll find the correct path forward eventually. Now, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're thinking this will be hard, it will be hard. And you should be glad it is hard, because if it wasn't hard, everyone would be doing it. And then you have to be different to stand out. And then you would not be able to stand out by doing this stuff, right? But most of your competition will be too busy executing on the events to actually take time to step back, look at their business, identify their competitive advantage, identify their customers, identify, their value offering, all this stuff, and really create marketing that wins. In the long run, this takes more discipline to do, but it is the faster path. Okay. I promise you this works. Now, one quote that I really love, and I didn't believe it for a long time, but now I do after a decade of trying to prove this wrong. And that is, there's no silver bullet. There's just hundreds of golden BBs. There's no one thing that will change your business. There is not one thing. There are hundreds of small things that when you do them at the same time, it will change your business, right? There's no silver bullet. So remember that. There's not one course. There's not one guru. There's not one seminar. There's not one person you can hire that will change your whole business. There's a lot of small changes that over time will amount to something great. And remember, the goal is to discover a predictable and repeatable way to find clients that you can teach other people to do for you. And you cannot do this until you've really figured out what makes you unique, what makes you different. And until you do this, you're going to be stuck in the death trap. So there's no silver bullet, but there are 100 golden BBs. And I want to share some of the most important things that I've learned throughout this process, just to wrap things up. The first one is that you want to create a marketing process you can control the frequency and the intensity of. You want to hold the steering wheel to your own marketing. That's really important when it comes to controlling the destiny of your company, right? Things like word of mouth, that's great. It's a bonus. It's gravy, but it cannot be your primary way of growing. The next thing, you want to start small and see if something works before you fully commit. Don't go all in. That's a terrible idea. Start small, see if you're getting the results you want. If you want more of those results, keep doing the same thing. If you want different results, don't do the same thing. Also, if you do what everyone else does, you'll get the same results everyone else has. I've hired a lot of people to help me with social media. And what do? They go to my competitors who are making substantially less money, making substantially less profit, or substantially less organized, substantially worse customer experience, and they're trying to copy them. And it's a bad idea, but I let them do it for a long time, for several years, because I didn't know what else to do. And then lo and behold, I just burned a ton of money and I didn't get any good results from it, right? So if you're going to copy someone, make sure you want to be where they're at. Otherwise, don't copy them. Otherwise, you'll just get the same results. You must be different, stand out. Also, be skeptical of marketers and people promising an easy fix. That's courses, that's marketing gurus, that's ad buyers, that's graphic designers, anyone that promises that they can solve your problem right away and that it's going to be an easy fix. Beware of those people. They're probably just out to scam you. Now, this is overwhelming. I acknowledge that. It's very hard to build a good business. This has been an 11-year journey for me. Okay. September of 2022 is when Balloon Artisan changed forever and it really took off and the trajectory changed, right? That's when I really figured this stuff out. But I can tell you, it's hard, but it's worth it. And it is possible and you can do it. Just test, and don't quit. So that's everything I have for you. So hopefully in our time together, you've learned to identify the event professional's death trap, which is the number one thing that keeps most professionals stuck in their business. Then you've learned how to identify your competitive advantage, what makes you stand out in a crowded sea of competitors, what makes you different. 3, hopefully you've learned to attract clients like crazy by using the scientific method. Just remember, test, stay humble. You don't know the path forward. You might think you know, you probably don't. Once you test and you have data that supports that, then you can make a decision to move forward, right? That's the most important thing I can share with you. Test, then decide. So that's all I have for you. If you've loved this, you found it to be very helpful, and you want more, I got some good and bad news for you. The first thing is I'm not currently planning on making any more of these. So this is kind of it. But my mind can be changed if I find there's enough people that actually find this valuable and they want to learn from it. If you found this valuable and you want more content, go ahead, connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to me through the Balloon Artisan website. My team will forward the messages to me. Tell me what you found helpful about the content. Tell me what you loved. If you disagree with anything or have any suggestions for improvement, you can tell me that as well. And then lastly, tell me what other problems you're experiencing in your business that you need help solving. I would love to help you with those things. I'm pretty good at things related to pricing and sales, training teams, marketing, branding, building systems, doing sales, and even hiring. I've gotten pretty good at that. Anything outside of that, I'm a little iffy on, but those things I'm pretty solid at. So here's my LinkedIn again. You can also connect with us on Instagram at Balloon Artisan. I think we're on TikTok as well, and Facebook at Balloon Artisan, or you can reach out at balloonartisan.com. So thank you. I hope this is helpful. Go change the world with your business. Go help people celebrate their once-in-a-lifetime milestones that make life worth living.